You wake before the alarm on the morning of May 14th, 1961. And for one half second, before you remember, it is just a Sunday, Mother's Day. The light comes gray through the boarding house curtain in Atlanta, and somewhere below a radio is already playing, and the room smells of last night's coffee gone cold on the hot plate. Then you remember where the bus is going, and what is waiting on the road, and your stomach turns over like a key in a lock. You are 21 years old. You have a ticket in your jacket pocket, a Greyhound ticket, Atlanta to Birmingham by way of Aniston. And you have decided, the way a young man decides things, all at once and with your whole chest, that you are going to sit where you please on that bus. You are not going to move to the back. By law, you do not have to. There is a Supreme Court ruling, barely 6 months old, that says so. You have read it. You have folded the fact of it into yourself like a man folds a letter he means to keep. And in 9 hours, on a 2-lane highway 6 miles past the Aniston city limit, a man is going to throw a firebomb through the window of the bus you are riding, and you do not know that yet. You only know it is Mother's Day, and your own mother is 200 miles away in Nashville, and you did not tell her exactly what you were doing. Let me say plainly before we go any further who you are in this story, because honesty is the only currency I deal in. I am going to call you Eli Carter. And Eli Carter is a composite, drawn from the testimony of the real men and women who rode those buses in the spring of 1961, from the oral histories collected for the Civil Rights Movement Veterans Archive, from the interviews John Lewis gave across 40 years, from the depositions and the wire service reports of that week. The name is invented, the day is not, the road is not, the fire was very real, and it happened to people whose names we know, and I will give you those names before we are through. Take Eli as your seat on the bus. Ride in him. You are a divinity student. That matters. You came up in a Baptist church in Nashville where the pews were hard and the preaching was long, and you sat through the workshops that fall and winter where a man named James Lawson taught you how to be hit and not hit back. That is not a figure of speech. There were drills. Other students played the mob. They screamed in your face. They poured cold coffee down your collar. They called you every name in the catalog of that word. They knocked you out of the chair and onto the floor, and you learned to curl, to protect the soft places, the kidneys and the skull, and to keep your hands open and visible, and never, never to swing. You practiced going limp. You practiced love as a tactic, which is a strange and terrible thing to practice, and which most people who say the word love have never once tried to do. You dress in the half-dark, a clean white shirt, because you are taught to ride well-dressed, to give them nothing to point at. A narrow, dark tie, your good shoes. You put your Bible in your jacket pocket, the small one, the one your grandmother gave you, the leather worn soft at the corners. And you do not put it there to be holy about it. You put it there the way another man checks for his wallet. It is simply where it goes. Downstairs the others are gathering, and here is something the newsreels never quite tell you. Something the textbooks flatten. There is no special bus. There is no chartered coach with a banner on the side. You are going to ride the regular 9:15 Greyhound, the same one a traveling salesman rides, the same one a soldier rides home on leave, the same one carries a grandmother to see her daughter in Birmingham. You will buy your tickets at the window like anyone. Most of the other passengers will have no idea who you are or why you are there. You are going to integrate the bus simply by being on it, in the seat you choose. That is the whole strategy. It sounds like nothing. It is the most dangerous thing you have ever done. There are 7 of you riding this morning who are part of it, though the count shifts and the records disagree on exactly how many were aboard when it mattered. And I will not pretend to a precision the sources do not give me. A mix. Black and white, which is the point, which is the provocation. 2 races sitting together where the law of Alabama says they must not. There is Albert Bigelow, a white man, 55 years old, who commanded a Navy ship in the Pacific War and then sailed a small boat into a nuclear test zone to protest the bomb, and who now intends to sit beside a black man on a bus and let whatever comes, come. There is a woman among you, older, a schoolteacher type with steel in her spine. You do not know all their stories yet. You will learn some of them in the next 9 hours. Some you will never get the chance to learn. You eat almost nothing, coffee black, and half a piece of toast that turns to paste in your mouth. The radio in the boarding house kitchen is talking about the weather. Fair and warm across the southeast, a fine Mother's Day, and then it talks about the other bus, the Trailways, that left earlier, and about the troubled days back in Rock Hill, South Carolina, where John Lewis, who is 21 same as you, walked into a white waiting room, and a man knocked him down at the door, and another kicked him in the ribs while he lay there. Lewis got up. Lewis got back on the bus. You hear this over the coffee, and you set the cup down because your hand is not entirely steady, and you make yourself pick it up again. Outside, the morning is genuinely beautiful. That is the cruelty of it, that the worst days so often dawn clear. The dogwoods are past their bloom, but the air is soft, and the Georgia sky is the blue of a robin's egg. A church bell rings somewhere across Atlanta, calling the early service, calling the mothers and the children in their good clothes. And you stand on the sidewalk with your small bag and your folded court ruling and your grandmother's Bible, and you think, God forgive me, but it is the human thought. You think, it is not too late to not get on. You could walk to that church instead. You could sit in a pew on Mother's Day and be a living son. No one would ever know you turn back, except you. You get on the bus. The bus pulls out of the Atlanta terminal at 9:15, and for the first hour, the astonishing thing is how ordinary it is. Diesel and warm vinyl and somebody's cigarette. The driver, a heavyset man named O.T. Jones, calls the stops in a flat working voice. You take a seat well forward. That is the deliberate part, the only deliberate part, and the rest of you spread through the bus so as not to clump. A black rider here, a white rider there, a seat between strangers who are not strangers. The other passengers settle into the small business of a long ride. A salesman reads the sports page. 2 soldiers sleep with their caps over their eyes. A woman knits something pale and shapeless. None of them know. That is the part I want you to hold on to, because it is the part that gets sanded smooth in the retelling. You are not riding into the lion's mouth in a marked car with the world watching. You are riding in plain sight, anonymous, and the anonymity is its own kind of nakedness. Georgia rolls by the window. Red clay cuts in the road. Pine. The long green monotony of cotton not yet knee-high. Filling stations with their colored and white signs over separate doors and separate spigots. And you have seen these signs your whole life. You have drunk from those fountains. And still each one goes into you like a small splinter. Somewhere past Marietta, a child 2 rows up asks her mother why that man is sitting up here, meaning you, and the mother hushes her, embarrassed, not cruel, just a white woman in 1961 who does not want trouble on a Sunday. And you look out the window and let it pass over you the way Lawson taught. Let it pass. Keep your hands open. You are not here to win an argument with a frightened woman. You are here to ride. Albert Bigelow sits across the aisle in 1 row back. Once, when the bus sways on a curve, he catches your eye and gives you the smallest nod, captain to crew, and says nothing. And that nothing is worth more than a speech. I have read what Bigelow wrote about why he did these things. He had decided, after Hiroshima, that he could no longer stand on the safe side of any line, that a man's body was the only honest argument he had left. He is 55. He fought a war. He could be home in a garden. He is on this bus instead, and the next time anyone photographs his face, it will be smeared with blood. The day's first real stop is a crossroads town I will not pretend to name with certainty. The depositions blur here, the small Georgia towns run together, and I would rather tell you I am unsure than tell you a tidy lie. Call it a Trailways and Greyhound pull-off, with a lunch counter and a gravel lot baking in the noon sun. You file off to use the restroom, and here is the daily arithmetic of being you in that country. Which door, which fountain, whether to risk the white facilities and provoke what you came to provoke, or to slip around back this once and save yourself for Alabama. You choose each time, and the choosing is exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with the heat. It is here, in the gravel lot, that an old woman comes to you. She is black, stooped, in a faded print dress and a man's cardigan despite the warmth, and she has been watching from the shade of the depot wall. She comes to you the way you approach a skittish animal, slow, and she presses into your hands a small bundle wrapped in newspaper, still warm. Sandwiches. Fried fatback between 2 slices of light bread and 3 boiled eggs. And the newsprint already going translucent with the grease. "For the road, baby," she says very low, so the white folks at the counter do not hear. "I know what y'all doing." And then she takes your face in both her dry, hard hands, the hands of 70 years of other people's laundry and other people's cotton, and she looks at you and her eyes fill and do not spill, and she says a name, Thomas, her boy's name, you understand, though she does not explain. And she says, "You eat. You hear me. You eat and you keep on." She makes the sign of the cross over you, though you are Baptist and so, you suspect, is she. And the gesture is older than either of your churches. Then she has gone back into the shade before you can find a single word. You stand in the gravel holding the warm bundle. And it is this, not the law, not the court ruling folded in your pocket, not even the workshops. It is this old woman who has lost a Thomas to something she would not name, feeding you with food she could not spare, that undoes you and remakes you in the space of a breath. You think you might weep right there in the lot. You do not. You climb back on the bus and you eat one of the eggs slowly. And you pass the bundle quietly down to Bigelow and the others. And nobody says anything. And the bread is the best thing you have ever tasted. And it is gone too soon. By early afternoon, the bus crosses into Alabama. And you feel the change before you see a sign. It is nothing you could prove to a jury. The light is the same, the pines are the same, but the riders who are part of it grow quiet. And the quiet spreads, and even the salesman folds his paper. There had been word, over the church grapevine, over the careful telephone calls of the night before, that the trailways riders ahead were meeting trouble, that men were waiting at the depots now, that the clan had been promised something. You did not believe it fully. You half believed it, which is the worst way to believe a thing, because it lets you go on while it eats at you. Then, an hour short of Aniston, the bus slows. You crane to see. 3 men in shirt sleeves stand by the roadside near a parked car, not waving for a ride, just watching the road, and one of them lifts a hand to his eyes against the sun and looks directly at the bus as it passes, and turns and gets into the car. You tell yourself it is nothing, a man on a road on a Sunday, but your mouth has gone to cotton, and across the aisle Bigelow is sitting very straight now, both feet flat on the floor, his hands resting open on his knees, the way a man sits who has decided not to run. You put your own hand against your jacket, against the small, hard shape of your grandmother's Bible, not to read it, just to know it is there. The road to Aniston runs out ahead, 2 lanes, shimmering, perhaps 100 miles of Alabama still between you and Birmingham. And somewhere on that road, the car with the 3 men is already telephoning ahead. Aniston came at the bus like a fist. You felt the town before the depot, the streets too empty for a Sunday afternoon, the porches watching, and then the Greyhound station, and around it a crowd. Not a knot of curious men, a crowd. 50, the early report said. Later accounts say closer to 200 by the time it was over. And the truth is probably somewhere in the cruel middle. But it does not matter, because even 50 is a C when you are inside a metal box, and the box has stopped moving. They had bats. They had lengths of pipe and chains, and one man, God help you, had a hatchet. Some had brought their children, the way men once brought children to other things in that country, and that detail is the one I have never been able to set down without my hand going still. The driver, Jones, took one look and did not open the doors. To his credit, and the credit is real whatever else, he did not open the doors. The mob came on anyway. They beat the sides of the bus with the pipes, a sound like the world's largest drum, ringing through the floor and up into your teeth. A man swung a bat against the windows, and the safety glass starred white but held, and a face appeared on the other side of that frosted star, mouth working, shouting words the glass mostly ate. Someone took a piece of iron to the door and bent it. The bus rocked on its springs as bodies threw themselves against it. Inside, the ordinary passengers, the salesman, the soldiers, the woman with her knitting, pressed back in their seats, white-faced, understanding all at once who they had been riding with, and not caring now about anything but the glass between them and the noise. You did what Lawson trained you to do, which is the hardest thing a body can be asked. Nothing. You did not shout back. You did not pick up anything to swing. You sat and you made your hands open on your knees the way Bigelow had, and you breathed, and you let the fear move through you and not own you. Beside you, the older woman among the riders had her eyes shut and her lips moving, and you realized after a moment she was not praying for rescue. She was praying for the men outside, for the man with the hatchet. You have carried that with you every day since. Then the police came. Slowly, you noted, slowly. And the officers waded into the crowd and pushed it back, not with anger, but with a kind of weary choreography, like men breaking up a thing they had known was scheduled. And here's the fact that the calm version leaves out. An officer climbed up and spoke to Jones and told him to drive on, to get the bus out of the city, and the crowd parted to let it go. They wanted it gone. They wanted it on the open road, because someone had let the air out of two of the tires while the bus sat trapped, slashed, or simply deflated. The accounts differ. And a bus on slashed tires cannot run far, and everyone in that crowd knew it. The police escort peeled away at the city line, and the cars fell in behind. You counted them in the rear window against your own will, the way you count the things you most wish you could not see. 40, 50 automobiles, strung out along Highway 202, horns blaring, men hanging from the windows. The bus labored, the flat tires thudding, slower and slower, the driver fighting a wheel that no longer wanted to track straight. 6 miles. The town fell behind. The countryside opened, kind and green and indifferent. A place called, of all the bitter names, Bynum, near a country store and a little rise of road. And there the tires gave out entirely, the rims grinding into the asphalt, and the Greyhound shuddered and stopped. The cars stopped behind it. The doors of the cars opened, and the men came out, and this time there were no police, and no glass thick enough, and 100 miles of Alabama in every direction with no one to telephone. For a few minutes that stretched like hours, they could not get in. The riders held the door from inside, and the door held, and the windows held, and the men outside circled the bus, beating on it, and rocking it, and trying the handle, screaming for you to come out, that they were going to burn you out, that you were going to die on that road. And you believed them, because there was nothing in their voices that was not true. Bigelow had his shoulder to the door. The older woman was still praying with her eyes shut. You were thinking, with a strange and floating clarity, of your grandmother's hands, and of the old woman in the gravel lot, and of your mother in Nashville, who did not know exactly where you were, and of how it was still somehow, technically, Mother's Day. Then a window broke at the back. Not a face this time, but an arm, and the arm threw something, a bundle, a rag stuffed into a bottle, already lit. It struck the floor near the rear and broke, and the gasoline ran flaming under the seats, and a second one followed it. And the inside of the bus filled in seconds with a thick, oily, black smoke that you could not see through and could not breathe. Smoke that scoured the lungs and shut the eyes. And from outside, over the roar of it catching, you heard a man's voice rise up almost glad. "Burn them alive! Burn the—" And the rest of the word was the word, the one they had taught you to hear without flinching. And you heard it now.